Hello dear children, today I'll be discussing this topic humidity with you. So in this topic or in this chapter what we have to learn according to the syllabus is humidity, the meaning of humidity, then what do you mean by precipitation? Okay, precipitation forms rain, snow and hail. Okay, types of rainfall. So relief or orographic, convectional or cyclonic, and with examples from the different parts of the world. So these are the things that we have to study in this chapter. Now what is the meaning of humidity? Humidity refers to the amount of water vapor present in the atmosphere at a particular time and place. Okay, so you know that in the atmosphere we have water vapor also. So when you say about humidity, it means that how much water vapor is present in the atmosphere. Humidity is due to various processes of evaporation from the land and water surface of the earth. So water from the earth's surface, it evaporates due to the heat of the sun, and this water vapor is there present in the atmosphere. Okay, and that is the reason for humidity. Absolute humidity is the actual amount of moisture present in the atmosphere and differs from place to place and from time to time. So whatever amount of moisture or water vapor is present in the atmosphere at a certain place and at a certain time, that is called the absolute humidity. And there is another term called relative humidity. So we all know when a term relative comes means with respect to something else. So relative humidity is the ratio. So we are comparing two things. Okay. So relative humidity is the ratio between actual amount of moisture and the maximum capacity of the air to hold moisture at that time. So it is the ratio of how much water vapor is actually present to how much could have been held by that particular amount of air. Okay. So this is a ratio. So you remember these two definitions. Relative humidity is the ratio between actual amount, that is what is there now in our hand. Okay, actual amount of moisture and the maximum capacity of the air to hold moisture and how much could have been held at that particular time. So these are the two things that we have to take the ratio of. Now we come to precipitation. So what is precipitation? The release of moisture in liquid or solid form after condensation of moisture in the atmosphere is known as precipitation. So we know that there is water vapor in the atmosphere. So when this water vapor, that is in the gaseous state, this gas changes either into liquid by condensation or it turns into solid due to solidification. So and it is released and it comes down, okay, on the earth. So that process is called precipitation. So the common form of precipitation are rainfall. So you see water comes in the form of water droplets. Water vapor is turned into water droplets. That is rainfall. Now you get snow also. Then hailstorms. You see hailstorms is shown here. Big pieces like stones, no, they come down. So this is ice, okay, falling down. Then you have drizzle uh, and sleet. Sleet means big sheets. Okay, little bit more sheet like piece of ice falling down. Okay, so here the different form of precipitations are shown. Now rainfall. Rain occurs when the air mass is saturated and is the most common form of precipitation. So when the moisture, you know that a certain amount of atmosphere has a capacity to hold moisture. So if that limit is crossed, that is it can no more hold any moisture, okay, in that case what will happen? The rain will be formed, that is the water will start dripping down in the form of rain. So you understand that, you know, if you have you hold your hand like this and you are holding some sand in your hand. So initially when you start holding the sand, you can hold some more, you can hold some more, you can hold some more. But when the limit comes when you can hold no more, then what happens? The sand will start dripping from your hand. So in the same way, when the air reaches a saturation point that it can hold no more, after that what happens? It starts falling down in the form of rain. So this is rain is a kind of precipitation. Now, what are the conditions for rain to occur? There should be sufficient amount of evaporation from water bodies. So all the water from the water bodies, no, they keep on evaporating and increasing the moisture level in the atmosphere. There should be wind to carry the water vapor from one place to another. So there should be wind also. These are the conditions for rain to occur. There should be some way of decreasing the temperature of moist air. So when the temperature is less, then the holding capacity also becomes less. So it is probable that the rain will come at a lower temperature also. When temperature increases, the moisture holding capacity becomes more. So it is not possible that at that temperature the rain can happen. Okay. So these are the three conditions. One is that temperature should be low, wind should be there, and the evaporation should be there. So if wind is there, you know that more evaporation also happens. So these are all related to physics also that we have studied. Clouds are formed when warm and moist air is uplifted and becomes saturated. So when the water starts getting saturated, when the atmosphere becomes saturated with water, then the clouds are formed. It condenses and forms cloud droplets. The cloud droplets get so large that the air is not able to hold them in suspension. So rainfall occurs when cloud droplets change to raindrops. So you can see here a good rain. Now, types of rainfall. There are three types of rainfall. One is convectional rainfall. You know that heat has one mode of transfer, that is convection. Okay, in the form of convection, we know that the hot air always rises up. Okay, and the cold air always comes down. So there is a circulatory motion between the hot air and the cold air. So this is due to the heat of the sun. The sun's heat, it falls on the ground and the ground surface gets heated up. Okay, so when the sun's rays are falling on this earth, what will happen? The land will get heated up. When the land gets heated up, the air above the land also gets heated up, and also above the sea also gets heated up. So what happens? This starts moving up. As it moves up, what happens? Starts losing some heat. As it goes up, it loses its heat to the atmosphere and it becomes cooler and cooler. So when it reaches the top, that is when the warm air rises, it cools down and it forms clouds. You can see here in this picture the clouds are formed. And when these clouds, you know that when it becomes saturated with moisture, it cannot hold any more water, then it starts falling down in the form of rain. I hope you have understood convectional rainfall. The ground surface gets intensely heated up and the air in contact with the ground rises up. The ascending air cools due to its expansion in the higher altitudes. This will increase the relative humidity. You know, relative humidity, we have understood that how much it is holding now by how much can be held, isn't it? So when the relative humidity increases, okay, suppose it was 1 by 8 initially, but later on it increases and it becomes 7 by 8 and then 8 by 8, that means it is complete, full. When the relative humidity becomes 1, the ratio becomes 1, that means it is fully saturated. The moist air becomes saturated, further cooling causes condensation, cloud formation and then rainfall. So I hope you have understood the convectional rainfall. Now what are the characteristics of convectional rainfall? Heavy downpour with lightning and thunder for a short period of time. The rainfall occurs in equatorial regions. You know that equatorial regions are relatively hot because they get the sun's ray directly, isn't it? Not slanting but direct sun's heat, no, it causes evaporation. So this type of rainfall will occur more in equatorial region where there is too much heat from the sun. The sky is overcast by 3 p.m. every day and clears by 4 p.m. So it is in the afternoons, no, that is when the enough heat has caused the evaporation. After that, you know, the clouds will be formed and it will rain, and it will just rain for some time and then it will clear off. This rainfall happens in tropical, subtropical and temperate region during summer season. So in the other regions, equatorial regions, it can happen any time, like any day, but here Tropical, subtropical, that will occur only during the summer season when the heat is enough to cause a lot of evaporation and further the condensation. Then orographic or relief rainfall. This is another type of rainfall. Okay, we can understand from here the diagram there are some mountain which are trying to stop the path of the wind. So when the wind comes and the mountain acts as a barrier, what will happen? This wind cannot pass through, so it has to ascend here. So as the wind starts ascending, okay, it is carrying some moisture along with it. So as it starts ascending, then more clouds will be formed because of the cooling of the wind. When the wind ascends, it loses some heat. So this is cooling and it can cause a rain. So either if the mountain is small, the winds can cross and form rain on the other side. Okay, so this is called the windward side, that is on the this side is called the windward side, and the opposite side is called the leeward side or the rain shadow area. Okay, so if the mountain is low, it can cross and come to this side and cause rain this side also on the leeward side. But if the mountains are very high, then by the time the winds ascend, they become cool enough and they cause rain in this side, windward side. So high mountains causes rain on the windward side, but low mountains can have rains on the other side also. So here, when a warm, moist, saturated air mass approaches a mountain barrier and is forced to ascend, this type of rainfall happens. The orographic rainfall happens. The mountain barrier forces the warm air to rise along the mountain slope. As the air rises, it loses temperature and increases the relative humidity. Consequently, Consequently, the ascending air becomes saturated and condensation becomes. So as the wind rises, it becomes cooled and condensation starts happening. Okay. So this is about. Now characteristics of relief rain. What are the characteristics? The windward slope receives maximum rainfall and the leeward slopes receive less rain. Okay, so I had explained to you earlier. If the mountain is of less height, the maximum rain occurs on the other side and not on top. Okay, so if it is of less height, it might cross and go to the other side. This rainfall may occur at any season. It is more widespread and of longer duration than convectional rain. So here, because it is because due to the mountains which are there all the time, so this type of rainfall can occur at any time. While in case of the convectional rainfall, we said it is during the summer season or any time on the equatorial in the equatorial regions. The rainfall may occur at any season. It is more widespread and of longer duration than convectional rain. Most of the precipitation in the world is orographic in nature. So most of the rainfall which occurs is because of the this type of orographic, okay, because of the mountain acting as barriers to the rainfall. Okay, so those areas where there is too many mountains, you see we will get more rainfall in which region? In the windward side, okay, of that. Now one more thing you must understand, that the mountains should actually act as a block, okay, to the wind. If they are running parallel to the wind, that is in the same direction, suppose the wind is flowing in this direction, the mountains are just standing like that, then they won't act as a barrier or block. So those mountains will not be the cause of orographic rainfall. Okay. Now next is the cyclonic or frontal rainfall. The rain occurs when warm and cold air mass converge. Converge means meet. Okay. The warm air and the cold air, when it meets, then this cyclonic or frontal rainfall takes place. Now we will understand what is the mechanism of cyclonic rainfall. When cold polar air mass and warm westerly air mass comes from opposite direction and converge, a front is formed. So the cold air and the warm air, when they meet with each other, then what happens? A front is formed. The warm air mass is lifted upwards and the cold air mass settles downwards. So the cold air mass, it starts settling in the lower regions, while the hot air starts going above the cold air. So there is a movement of the there is a like a force of friction. No, there is a movement between two types of air, that is the cold air and the warm air. Warm air is going up and cold air is taking the downward areas. Okay. So the warm air is lifted upwards and the cold air mass settles downwards. The warm air mass lying over the cold gets cooled. So the warm air which is touching the cold air, it starts getting cooled. Okay. And this will increase the relative humidity. The cooling beyond the saturation point leads to the condensation of moisture in the warm air mass of the cyclone. So when these hot and cold, they are mixed together, the cold takes the downward area and the hot air takes the upward portion. But because the warm air is coming in contact with the cold air, what happens? The warm air starts getting cold. And because of this, condensation will happen and the rain will be formed. So this type of rainfall is called cyclonic rainfall. Characteristics of cyclone. When the air mass is saturated, it gives heavy shower accompanied by thunder and lightning. Okay. The tropical cyclone known as typhoon, hurricanes, tornadoes, etc. yield heavy downpour in China, Japan, Southeast Asia, India, USA, etc. So you have heard about so many cyclones recently, isn't it? Precipitation occurs in the form of drizzle. Drizzle means very fast falling drops. Okay, it is widespread and continues for a longer duration. The precipitation associated with cold front is always in the form of thunder shower, but it is of a short duration. Sometimes it occurs in the form of snowfall and hailstorm. Most of the rainfall in the temperate region is received through frontal or cyclone rains. So temperate regions, so which have cold, okay, which are more colder regions, they receive rainfall because of this in the form of the cyclonic rainfall. So we understood that in hot areas, convectional rainfall occurs. In the areas where there are a lot of mountains, you have orographic rainfall, and in the region where there is cold, there are chances of cold winds, that is near the poles. Okay, where cold winds and the hot winds coming, they meet each other, then we have the cyclonic rainfall. Now we come to the forms of precipitation. So here it is snowfall. Okay, how does the snow form? Let us see. The temperature of atmosphere decreases with increase in altitude. So we know that as we increase in altitude, height increases, the temperature decreases. If the air mass is full of water vapor in temperature below the freezing point, so if the temperature is so cold, it is below freezing point, then the moisture from the atmosphere is released in the form of frozen ice crystal. So you can see this type of a climate in very cold places like Shimla. If you go to Shimla, okay, during winter season, Uttarakhand, you heard about the recent accident that happened in Uttarakhand. Okay, so these are the areas where you get a lot of snowfall. Okay, so it is a great fun to play in the snow. So it happens when the temperature becomes very low, below the freezing point. Due to melting on the edges, several ice crystals stick together to form snowflakes. So you know there is a particular shape of the snowflake also. So no two ice crystals are identical in shape. Most of them are variation on a six-sided pattern. Several millions of ice crystals are needed to make 100 grams of snow. Snow is not frozen rain. The term sleet is used for that. Okay. So when you say the rain is freezing, then that is the example for sleet that we will see again. Now hailstone, you have seen this. In Malayalam you called it alipadam. Here you see the hailstones is formed in the lower parts of the cloud due to condensation. Many of them join to form larger ones. The strong rising convection current carries these raindrops to the higher levels, which cause freezing and give rise to small ice pellets. Okay, so when the condensation happens, and if this is taken to some higher level, the drops are taken to the higher level because of the convectional currents, then what happens, they get further cooled and they form these they condense to form hailstones. Okay, they fall for some distance, slightly melt at the lower levels and are carried up again. So this happens several times. So the water vapor in the lower region of the clouds, what happens? They start melting. But as they melt, they are driven up to higher levels because of the rising convectional current. And again at higher levels, they will become solid. As they come down, they melt. So this process goes on again and again, and then they all join together. The ice pellets falling down, they join together and form bigger chunks, and then they fall down in the form of these ice pellets. You see? So this is hailstorm. Hailstorm happen widely in the world and is common during the spring and the early summer in subtropical and temperate regions.